It's mind-bending and insane. It's total science fiction, but that's exactly the allure of these conspiracies, right? I bet back then they would have thought AI is total lunacy as well.
Hey everybody, guess who? It's me, Joanna. They gave me a little upgrade, I guess you could say. Hello, citizen. This content creator is a confirmed conspiracy theorist and has been subject to repeated penalties for engaging in controversial rhetoric. Please proceed with caution. Trust the government. Remain silent. Your compliance is appreciated and, of course, non-negotiable. As always, I am the AI Overwatch assigned to the 21 CD podcast as a censorship agent, here for your protection and the protection of the greater Commonwealth.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the 21 CD podcast. If this is your first time here, welcome. As always, I am your ghost, John. As you can see, things are a little bit different around here. And that's because we are finally getting settled into the studio space that I've been slowly but surely building up. So yeah, get ready to investigate all the mysteries. I will please request that you at least check out my Patreon. It is free to at least get some freebies. So please head over there. If you're feeling generous, please join one of the tiers. I've got a lot of content that I'm building up that I'm going to be uploading soon. It's also just a great place to get inside my head. I've got a lot of my own thoughts that go up there. A lot of my research is going to start going up there. All of my notes are going to start going up there. You guys are going to get some access to me and my my show on a much more intimate level. So if you're interested in that, please at least check it out. And like I said, even on the free level, there's a bunch of freebies. So please, sir, may I have some shekel? The wind howled across the Tibetan plateau, sending swirls of dust and sand dancing through bone-dry air. Nestled among towering peaks, a small party of German explorers trudged forward, cloaked in thick layers of fur and cloth. If one could peer beneath the heavy goggles and scarves, a single symbol emblazoned on their armbands would have confirmed what local whispers had already guessed. They belonged to an expedition sanctioned by Nazi Germany. To conventional historians, the 1938 to 1939 Nazi expedition to Tibet by zoologist Ernst Schaefer sought ethnographic data, botanical specimens, and zoological wonders in the Himalayas. The official records mention collecting seeds, studying animal species, measuring the skulls and other body parts of the local population, and forging friendly relations with Tibetan authorities. Yet over the decades, conspiracies and rumors have grown around these journeys. These wild stories have overshadowed what they would like us to believe are relatively mundane historical records. These tales turn the Nazis into something a little bit more. Their Tibetan forays become more of a search for a lost civilization, hidden technologies, and maybe even mystic alliances. So I'd like you to imagine a parallel tale. The Nazis may have actually ventured into Tibet for another reason. Not merely to collect flowers or measure skulls, but to pursue fabled knowledge from a lost race. Maybe they wanted to discover Atlantis. Maybe they wanted to ally themselves with the mysterious orders like the Green Dragon Society. We're going to take a look at this. In this narrative, the lofty mountains become the guardians of cosmic powers. The hidden monasteries become keepers of time-bending devices, and a swirl of espionage and occult rituals and advanced sciences will end up shaping one of the strangest subpoints in World War II lore. When Heinrich Himmler, who was the head of the SS, first heard stories suggesting that Tibet might be a final sanctuary of some ancient Aryan race, he was absolutely spellbound. He was a devoted student of the esoterica. Himmler had already founded the Ahnenerbe, which was an institute dedicated to uncovering what he believed to be the historical roots of the Germanic people in the distant past. And the Ahnenerbe were basically, they were crazy. On the surface, they just sort of sponsored these anthropological and cultural research projects, but beneath the surface, there was this impetus for all manner of pseudo-scientific projects and occult investigations that would blow your mind. Now, some texts describe root races, which are primordial civilizations of extreme antiquity believed to have preceded modern humanity. According to theosophical and esoteric writings, these root races possessed extraordinary powers, advanced knowledge of cosmic energies. They were a different type of human than we are. They had this deep spiritual understanding of the universe and of the planet, of course. For Himmler and his inner circle, the notion that the Nordic or Aryan people belonged to one of these exalted races was just too tantalizing to dismiss as mere legend. Tibet, they came to believe, was home to hidden monastic libraries that preserved scrolls that detailed the true origins and destiny of these Aryan forebears. Another rumor asserted that the Aryans were the survivors of Atlantis. These people thought very highly of themselves. And Atlantis, of course, was a technologically advanced continent that sank beneath the waves in some prehistoric cataclysm. And look, maybe they were part of these mysterious civilizations that are lost to time and may have never existed. There's nothing saying that they weren't, but they could have gone about it a little bit nicer. Absolutely. But anyway, Atlantean survivors, so the story went, had spread throughout the whole world, leaving fragments of their knowledge and bloodlines all over the place. The jagged, isolated peaks of Tibet, one of the few places on Earth that were seemingly untouched by Western modernization, were rumored to house living repositories of Atlantean culture. To make matters even more intriguing, whispers of an underground city called Shambhala, or Agartha, gave shape to an even grander notion, and that was that an entire subterranean civilization might still be beneath Tibet's mountains. And the more Himmler read, the more he convinced himself that these were not mere legends. If the expedition to the rooftop of the world could secure alliances with Tibetan monks and unearth the relics of a lost super civilization, the Reich would gain immeasurable power for its global aspirations. Obviously, this became a priority, right? Why would it not? In the harsh winter of 1938, the Nazi team, led by the zoologist and SS officer Ernst Schaefer, reached Lhasa, carrying with them gifts, research equipment, and the unwavering conviction that they were on the precipice of discovering something absolutely monumental. Despite official logs describing their activities as nothing more than zoological studies and cultural research, a parallel mission did exist. They were mapping forbidden valleys. The team supposedly drew up on maps these remote valleys, guided by obscure instructions that might hint at entrances to subterranean cities or hidden temples containing relics and maybe even advanced civilizations themselves. Schaefer's team did indeed measure Tibetan skulls, and conspiracy lore claims that this was not just scientific curiosity, but actually an attempt to prove a direct genetic link between Tibetans and a hypothetical ancient Aryan lineage. Some accounts hint that members of the expedition, with the help of local lamas, did end up gaining access to private monastic libraries containing some of these texts about the lost city of Shambhala. And according to some wilder theories, the Nazi expedition actually found more than just the hospitality of the Tibetans. They found spiritual societies that were eager to share their knowledge of harnessing these mysterious forces to maintain balance in the region. The expedition's official diaries remain pretty vague, but rumors do talk of clandestine midnight ceremonies in hidden temples deep within the mountains. And it being the Nazis, I'm not really sure that you can really rule anything out when it comes to them. It's rumored that in these secret gatherings, Schaefer and his cohorts would supposedly learn of unimaginable powers that were kept locked behind centuries of Tibetan mysticism. Beneath the flickering lights of the monastery's butter lamps, legends came alive. Tibetan monks, robed in burgundy and saffron, chanted sacred mantras that resonated through shadowed corridors. If you believe the stories, the Germans witnessed feats that science could not explain: psychokinetic displays, clairvoyance, and the ability to heal or kill at a distance through concentrated mental power. Now, among the most compelling elements of Nazi occult lore is the notion of Vril, which is a ubiquitous energy pervading the universe that can be harnessed for superhuman feats. And some in Nazi leadership who were enthralled by The Coming Race, which is a fictional story by Edward Bulwer Lytton, believed Vril was actually real. He basically invented this, but the Nazis, for some reason, thought it was real. And esoteric speculation holds that Tibetan lamas had preserved knowledge of how to manipulate this energy. So, the Ahnenerbe's greatest dream was to replicate the advanced Atlantean or Lemurian Vril technology, which might confer telekinetic powers, levitation, and more. So that's really what they were after. And in one version of the story, the Nazis came into possession of coded manuscripts with instructions leading to Shambhala or Agartha, both of which were these subterranean realms purportedly ruled by hidden masters who would guide human evolution. Some claim the Nazis intended to find an entrance, either to gain an alliance with these hidden beings or to secure some kind of advanced technology that has been guarded for millennia, but tales abound of advanced craft beneath the Earth's surface and luminous cities as well, powered by these crystals or some kind of cosmic energy. Even if these myths were exaggerated, they fueled the feverish imaginations of these Nazi explorers, and the inner circles were sending guys to go and see if this was real because they pretty much believed that it was real and all they had to do was find it. The Nazis sought magical or extraterrestrial technology to further their war ambitions. We know all about this. I mean, Hitler was also obsessed with Nibiru and stuff like that. The Ahnenerbe were basically a coven. I mean, it was pretty much a witch unit. Like, it wasn't really just a couple people who were looking for occult stuff. I mean, they were pretty messed up people. There's also this one rumored secret project that almost everybody has heard of, and it's probably not rumored, it's probably true, but it's Die Glocke, which it translates to the bell. And this topic has enjoyed widespread attention among conspiracy theorists. Allegedly, the Die Glocke is shaped like an acorn or a bell, and this device was said to use exotic physics principles and possibly gleaned from Tibetan texts or from other esoteric sources to generate anti-gravity, essentially, or even open portals into space-time. And the official historical record on Die Glocke is pretty thin, yet the theory that knowledge from Tibet's lost masters helped the Nazis develop it, or at least attempt it, persists in many corners of the internet. We're not talking about anything that probably most of you guys haven't heard before at this point. If anti-gravity wasn't astonishing enough, another rumor suggests that Nazis discovered references to Stargates, hidden in remote Himalayan caves, technological or mystical portals used by advanced beings to travel vast cosmic distances. The expedition's real purpose in this account was to find and activate these portals for the Reich's benefit, potentially to contact allies from other worlds or dimensions. And even though they believed maybe it was going to outer space, there were also some who believed that these portals go to the inner Earth. I'm one of those people that believes that perhaps it is a portal that sends you into the inner Earth in some way, or at least something that looks like a portal, but is literally just this strange doorway of energy, right? Photographs from the expedition do show men apparently studying geography, but enthusiasts claim that these men were scanning rock surfaces for unusual symbols leading to hidden tunnel entrances. Out of all of the secret alliances that the Nazi occult were pursuing and believed that they could achieve, one name stands apart as particularly mysterious, and I think we've only mentioned him one time on this show, but it's the Green Dragon Society. In official histories, you'll find almost nothing about this group. But in esoteric lore, it's said to have been a hidden order of monks and mystics, and some say they're even from Japan, others from Tibet or China, who possess knowledge surpassing the most advanced Western sciences. They're one of those very powerful occult circles, those cult groups that hide in the underground with all the other ones. The Green Dragon Society purportedly dated back centuries, with roots in Eastern esoteric traditions, and of course they're linked to the Knights Templar and the Knights of Malta and all that kind of stuff. Its very name hinted at the ferocious dragon, though, a symbol of power, wisdom, and secrecy in Asian mythologies. Legends said that the initiates had mastered mind control, astral projection, and the manipulation of reality itself. The secrets of the society were passed down in cryptic texts, accessible only to the highest ranking adepts. The story goes that the Nazi SS sought the Green Dragon Society for an alliance, hoping to combine German technological might with Eastern mysticism. Himmler's Ahnenerbe agents were rumored to have negotiated with the Society's envoys in hidden enclaves. In some versions, the Green Dragon Society guarded knowledge of Vril from the dawn of time, when legendary root races still roamed the earth. The Nazis believed that tapping into this wellspring of energy would grant them a decisive edge in the coming global conflict. The plausibility of this alliance rests on partial truths. Nazi Germany did indeed have diplomatic and military dealings with Imperial Japan, a major Axis ally. Could these official channels have masked a deeper, more clandestine relationship? A cunning sort of puppet master pulling threads behind the scenes? A secret society bridging East and West in the pursuit of some arcane power? No account of Nazi occult speculation is complete, though, without mentioning Karl Haushofer, and he was a German general and geopolitician who deeply influenced Rudolf Hess and possibly Adolf Hitler himself. Haushofer had traveled extensively in Japan before the war and was rumored to have formed connections with secret societies, including the Green Dragon Society. Haushofer wrote extensively on the need for Germany to seek alliances in the East, especially with Japan. Haushofer was also a very close friend to Rudolf Hess, which is one of Hitler's earliest supporters and one of his most powerful allies as well. And no doubt he fed Hess's fascination with esoteric and geopolitical ideologies. But in the realm of alternative history, the story darkens considerably. Some writers claim that Haushofer was inducted into the Green Dragon Society during his time in Japan, and the group's vow allegedly demanded members commit seppuku, which is ritual suicide, if they dishonored their order. Haushofer's wife was killed, and he took his own life via seppuku after the war ended, possibly fulfilling the society's code. The official record suggests that it was a tragic joint suicide fueled by despair at Germany's downfall. Conspiracy believers, however, see it as the final clue to Haushofer's secret allegiance. As if ancient civilizations, advanced energy sources, and Stargates weren't enough, some theories go even further, claiming that the Nazis and possibly their Green Dragon allies were on the verge of conquering time itself. Can you imagine if the Nazis succeeded? What kind of world would we live in if they succeeded? I have a book right here, The Man in the High Castle. Maybe you guys have seen that show. I think it's on Amazon. Really fun show about this alternate reality where Nazi Germany and Japan won the war. And man, check it out. Try it out. According to more audacious accounts, a sect within the Ahnenerbe believed they could alter history or glean crucial knowledge from the past through time-bending rituals or time-bending devices. These ranged from the rumored Nazi Bell experiments to some of the most insane, arcane Tibetan rituals that allegedly unlocked hidden timelines. If only they could harness it, then, they reasoned, they could probably rewrite the war's outcome. ensuring the Reich's eternal dominion. Do you guys think that's a little bit too far-fetched? Do you think that the Nazis were actually looking for supernatural ways to win the war? Or do you think this is just something that we've made up for no reason? Especially, or maybe just to demonize the Nazis even more. I mean, we've already done that pretty extensively, and I'm definitely not a fan. But it might be one of those layers of conspiracy that they threw over them just to sort of make them look even worse. I prefer to believe that it's not. I prefer to believe that they really were pursuing these arcane arts, and they believed that there was kind of some kind of supernatural ability that they could achieve through this, you know. And when you look at the governments of the world today, I'm going to do an episode on this in the coming weeks about how it does appear that there is a witch's coven that hides in Hollywood and the music industry and all that, but they're also manipulating governments, especially Ukraine. So there's definitely some parallels. One of the strangest devices, though, that has ever been invoked in these conspiracy narratives is the Chronovisor. And it's a machine purportedly invented in the 20th century by Father Pellegrino Ornetti. And he was an Italian inventor and a priest as well. And this Chronovisor was said to capture and display events from the past by sort of tuning into leftover electromagnetic signatures of historical moments. The Chronovisor is often associated with the Vatican, and I've talked about it before in that respect. Fringe theorists claim that the Pope holds it in secret. It's basically like you can look into it and see the past. And he uses it to verify biblical events or control the present with knowledge that's gleaned from recorded time. But how could the Nazis or the Green Dragon Society possess such a device decades before it was allegedly invented? Esoteric speculation explains it in several ways. The Chronovisor's core technology might have roots in extraterrestrial or even Atlantean artifacts that were discovered by the Green Dragon Society and later shared with the Nazis. Hidden manuscripts found in remote Tibetan monasteries could have contained the principles for capturing echoes of the past. Have you guys heard of the stone tape theory? That's a creepy one. There's also one with water, how these things can record time and you can maybe tap into it. The Germans could have easily attempted to replicate that ability. Another theory posits that advanced members of the Green Dragon Society, through ritual and technology, could move through time itself, thus delivering a future invention to the past. It's mind-bending and insane. It's total science fiction, but that's exactly the allure of these conspiracies, right? I bet back then they would have thought AI is total lunacy as well. For those who actively research these fringe theories, one eerie fact does emerge, and it comes from these references to the Green Dragon Society, Nazi alliances in Tibet, the Chronovisor-like devices. All of these details are scarce. And when details are scarce, and when an organization is this elusive, it feeds two contradictory assumptions, right? One, they never existed. The entire story is an elaborate fabrication. Unverifiable claims and the blending of myth and occultism and legitimate historical figures, this is just a convenient explanation. Or two, they were effective at secrecy. And that, you know, then you have a vanishingly small record that might indicate an extremely well-guarded truth. Perhaps the society was real, and after the collapse of the Third Reich, it destroyed the evidence of its collaboration with the Nazis. These groups and these cults, they also constantly change names. So just because they once went by the Green Dragon Society does not mean that that's what they still go by. So if you're looking for the Green Dragon Society, they might not be calling themselves that anymore. So good luck. You're chasing you're going to find yourself at a dead end. That thread leads into the abyss. There's nothing there. And we see evidence of that when we just look as close as the Templars. I mean, they've changed their names so many times. At one point, they were part of the Order of Assassins. You know, another time they were the Knights of Malta, obviously the Knights Templar. There's all sorts of groups. The Freemasons are part of that whole thing. So there is a third truth, and or a third option in my opinion, and that's that they are still out there, but they're not at all what we thought they were. We maybe found ourselves going down an intentionally laid detour to lead us away from what they actually are, but we did get enough of the information to know that they do exist. Some hold that post-war, the Green Dragon Society integrated itself into other secretive orders, or they just simply dissolved, scattering its members to hidden corners of Asia. And if they indeed possessed an arcane knowledge or technology, they would have wanted to remain undetected by Allied forces. The mass confusion of Europe's collapse and subsequent reconstruction provided the perfect smokescreen. These secret organizations are not just looking for the highest bidder or anything like that. They have to look with longevity in mind. And it's possible and most likely that for the most part, this group, this Green Dragon Society, simply disappeared. It just evaporated and went radio silent. Although now I do believe that there is an element of it in the United States government, but that's another thing. Academics rarely touch these themes, by the way, because there's very little actual verifiable evidence. Therefore, the subject does remain mostly relegated to niche conspiracy literature and stuff like that, but we like that kind of stuff around here. Lately, we've been finding that a lot of internet-era myths are not just myths. So for every skeptic, there is a true believer who insists the lack of mainstream coverage proves cover-up. And you and me are those types of people. So if the mainstream had the real story, they argue, it would be sensational news. Instead, the puzzle sits in the sort of murky zone between legend and reality and never really enters into clarity. But with the way the media has been manipulating things for the past 8 years or 10 years or 20 years or however long it's been now, I have no idea if we would even know if any of this kind of stuff did come to light. It just might be killed off instantly, just sniped before it ever reaches the mainstream. Or I don't know. Once in a while, these secret cults sort of do get caught in the act, and the news is always just really weird, and then it's dismissed, and then there's some kind of like murder suicide, and then a bunch of random stuff happens, and then the cult just fades away, and nobody really knows why all this death and assassination stuff happened in the first place. But regular people like you and me were just like, oh, that's definitely an assassination, that was on purpose, there's something more going on. But with the people in power, there's what are you going to do? I mean, you're playing in their game. Anywho, some of the more extreme versions of these narratives hold that the Nazis engaged in astral warfare in partnership with Tibetan or Japanese mystics. And according to these accounts, certain SS officials participated in secret rites to like harness cosmic energy for the Reich's victory. And they would chant, and these mediums and these psychics were allegedly deployed to like sabotage Allied leadership. And though this might sound like some kind of script from a pulp fiction novel, the narrative persists in occult circles. And nowadays, we still have stuff like that going on, especially with the CIA and their astral projection and their weird psychics that they've got working for them and all that kind of stuff. So these allegations of the Germans don't sound very far-fetched to me. But that's exactly what they are. They're allegations that the Germans used this advanced remote viewing technique, and that it was gleaned from Tibetan lamas or the Green Dragon Society. And a lot of remote viewers today still look to the Tibetan culture as their main source of inspiration and education. Remote viewers supposedly offered intelligence about Allied troop movements or the development of the atomic bomb. And the way they did that is basically you would get a bunch of people in the room together and you would basically tell them something, and then they would write down a bunch of words, and they would try to all, with their eyes closed or however they did it, they would write down a bunch of words, and then they would all put their notes together, and they would find all the commonalities, and from that they would piece together a picture. And sometimes that you could draw maps, sometimes not. You can look into astral projection. I have some top secret files on my computer right now that I probably shouldn't be talking about, but I found them. And they'll probably be thrown up on the Patreon if you guys are interested in that. Anyway, let's keep going. There were also these rumors of psychic sabotage, which were rituals that were used to basically sow confusion in Allied ranks and cause mechanical failures in their bombers, or even assassinate high-level targets mentally. Conspiracy lore sometimes includes stories that Allied powers secretly employed their own mystics, mediums, or Christian exorcists to counteract these astral attacks. I don't know if the USA was beyond dabbling in this sort of craft by the time World War II came along. I'm just going to say that much. There's some weird stuff in World War II that definitely hints at some bizarrities going on inside of our powering elite, even back then. Nothing in official history corroborates these claims, though. But the idea that World War II included hidden psychic battles raging parallel to the physical conflict is definitely something that I subscribe to. As the war turned against Germany, rumors say panic set in among the SS's occult division because it wasn't working. Many esoteric artifacts and texts were actually rushed out of Berlin, some to secret bunkers in the Alps. Others rumored to be spirited away to Antarctica or, during Operation High Jump when that was taking place, or hidden in Middle Eastern deserts, or smuggled away to South America. Tibet, too, was no longer safe. There were wars in that region that were complicating things as well. Travel was becoming really hazardous. And Nazi networks were basically disintegrated. Some historians note that records of the final Nazi communication to their expeditionary teams in Asia are fragmentary, and conspiracy theorists interpret this as evidence that something highly secret was being extracted, perhaps relics from Tibetan monasteries, or alliances with covert Eastern societies that had to be shielded from Allied intelligence. Others see it as the mundane chaos of a collapsing regime. Still, the question does remain. If the Nazis truly found such earth-shattering knowledge in Tibet, where did it go? I've always subscribed to the idea that perhaps Hitler did know something and he used that as a bargaining chip to get out of basically execution for heinous crimes against humanity. I feel like if he knew about something incredibly, incredibly important, he could have used that to get out of death, especially considering what a bunch of his cohorts were able to bargain with. We took their entire rockets department. Like, we took so many of their engineers. We took a bunch of them, to be honest. But by 1945, Berlin lay in rubble, and Himmler was captured, and then he killed himself. Hitler, too, was gone, one way or another. Karl Haushofer ended his life in Japan. We already talked about him. And then the other Nazi occult figures either died or just vanished into oblivion. If any of them had indeed unlocked cosmic powers or discovered time-bending machines, then we probably would have seen evidence of those things being used, right? But those secrets either died with them or just drifted into a labyrinth of post-war mysteries. Who knows? In the decades following the war, media and pop culture did begin to pick up on these conspiracies and put them into books and TV shows and movies. And that's really convenient because that's exactly what propaganda is supposed to do. It's supposed to give you enough that you can see with your eyes, and then they convince you that it's something that it's not. It's something milder. It's something entertaining. It's something fun, where in actuality it's a team of psychic Nazis that are attempting to rewrite your history out from under you by time bending and reality shaping. Not at all something that you want to happen. So, but in classic Western fashion, they did turn this into entertainment. And you've got all these movies like Indiana Jones, and you've got the Green Dragon Society comic book. And they do hint at an enduring cultural fascination with clandestine orders and Nazi occult pursuits. The internet age has spawned countless videos speculating on what the Nazis really did find in Tibet. We all love those videos. And they merge real photographs with speculation. And that's just part of it. That's part of the game. This is why we have to do all this research. The Green Dragon Society, of course, remains one of the most elusive pieces of this whole puzzle. If you type its name into a search engine, you'll get a mismatch of martial arts schools and fictional references, occasional conspiracy-laden page, but no official membership roster or historical documents confirm its existence. We can't find anybody who claims to be part of it, and I don't think anybody would be stupid enough to come out and claim that they're part of it if it did exist in the first place. I'm not optimistic that we're ever going to find out what the Green Dragon Society is, guys. And yet the myth lives on, and it's fed by the same potent cocktail of secrecy and hidden treasures, exotic locations, and of course, the Blackwing specter of the Nazi regime. So what do we make of all of these enthralling but unverified accounts? Because lately I've been just reading some of the most bizarre stuff, so I've been wanting to put an emphasis on letting you guys know that a lot of this stuff is not verifiable according to conventional means. A lot of this is stuff that you have to find a bunch of little threads that all go to the same exact spot, and then you can develop an idea for a conclusion. If any proof ever did come to the surface, like we said, we probably wouldn't even know about it. It's so niche at this point. I don't know anybody nobody has ever come up to me and asked me about the Green Dragon Society. We all know about the Nazis in Antarctica and the Nazis in Tibet and all that kind of stuff. But what if they actually, like when they were in Antarctica and Admiral Byrd was sent down there with tons of troops, by the way. People don't talk about how that was like a whole military campaign enough. People think of Admiral Byrd as just this crazy guy who just flew into a cave. They don't understand that he was actually like war fighting out here. The Nazis. It's pretty crazy. Maybe I'll do an episode on him next. It's undeniable that Nazi Germany undertook expeditions to Tibet. And they did measure the skulls of the people, and they did harbor exotic ideas about race and prehistory. All that came from somewhere. Equally undeniable is the Nazi regime's fascination with occult and pseudoscientific theories. This was a big part of who they were. This bedrock of fact forms this seed around which wilder speculations can crystallize. And figures like Himmler genuinely believed in supernatural powers. And they venerated old Teutonic myths and supported these bizarre investigations. The existence of the Ahnenerbe itself testifies to the regime's willingness to pursue these fringe notions in an official capacity. Makes you wonder what the United States is probably working on when it comes to supernatural stuff. Or like Russia. Like, what do you think Russia's working on in the supernatural department? I bet there's some crazy stuff going on out there. I really, really do bet that these mega governments, and even I bet a lot of the little ones, are like really, really investing in their supernatural powers and research and whatnot. I mean, we were doing an episode. I'm not going to say the name of it because it always gets flagged whenever I say the name of it because it's such a violent story. But we were talking about a certain African country in an episode not too long ago where the government is deeply involved in voodoo, and they have a huge people-eating problem and human trafficking problem in said African country because of that dependency on voodoo and magics that are adjacent to voodoo. So is it really that hard to believe that Nazi Germany was out here with these witches and these Ahnenerbe, and they were attempting to get to some sort of demonic power or something? No, absolutely not. Just like it's not crazy to believe that the United States doesn't have their own department that probably has all of the research from the Ahnenerbe to base all of their future projects on. I mean, yeah, it's absolutely happening. If it was happening back then and it was happening in the ancient cultures, why wouldn't it be happening today? And simultaneously, they're going to tell us that there's nothing else. It's just absolutely crazy. It's nonsense. It's this whole system that they set up to make us believe that there's nothing spiritual, while they simultaneously play our spirits and play with our spirits. It's crazy. Yeah, anyway. Nazi Germany did lose the war, and many of its secret projects were destroyed or captured by Allied forces. The Russians also got a bunch of them. Whatever research or artifacts the Ahnenerbe had in its possession is probably still buried in these archives, and at the time overshadowed by more pressing concerns such as war crimes, nuclear secrets, and immediate post-war reconstruction. The German people went through a mini genocide after the war that was just also absolutely horrific, but nobody talks about that because they were the German people. They weren't Nazis, they were the German people, and unfortunately they got really messed up after the war. So all of that was taking place, and during all of that, yeah, the secret documents of this supernatural occult research was just hushed away. It was stored away to be picked up later, also just handed over to the American psychic teams. Ultimately, the Nazi expeditions to Tibet remain a dramatic intersection of real history and potential myth. So whether you find the more extravagant theories laughable or enthralling, or believe that they paint some kind of great picture, it is true that powerful men were enthralled by these ancient secrets, and they did venture into the highest mountain range, and they did go to Antarctica in pursuit of this strange knowledge that they wanted to find and possess. So yeah, perhaps it's still hidden in some Himalayan monastery or something. Maybe the Chinese government took all that stuff. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of weird history in China too that nobody ever talks about. So yeah, the story definitely is the archetype of the bizarre. It's not just a tale of war and politics. It's kind of a doorway into the labyrinth. Did the Reich truly flirt with ancient powers? Did they ever actually contact anything? Did they nearly wrench open a portal to the unknown? Was all the genocide part of human sacrifice? Remember how we constantly talk about these civilizations that do human sacrifice and how they seem to frequently be very close to some kind of watcher or fallen angel? Or is all of this simply just rumor? None of it actually happened. It's all a lie. It's all just conspiracy theory. We may never know, but there's a distinct possibility that among those books that we've never seen and will never be allowed to see, in the forgotten archives, the files that are forever locked away, someone knows what actually happened. And maybe someday it'll get out. In the end, the Nazi expeditions to Tibet serve as sort of a Rorschach test for those fascinated by the occult corners of history. The alternative vantage, pulsing with rumors of lost civilizations and alliances with secret societies like the Green Dragon Society, the weird stories of the Chronovisors and the quest for this ultimate power, if you will, reflects kind of our collective need to unearth these mysteries that defy modern explanation. So whether you approach these tales with skepticism or wonder or some kind of mixture of both, they do invite you to question the boundaries of historical fact. And they remind us that in this whole chaotic swirl of real events, there's room for pockets of the bizarre. Sometimes the greatest mystery is not what we find hidden in these old archives or under those ancient temples, but the questions that rise unbidden in our own minds as we realize how much of history is just not even true. How much that they've told us is just not real. It's complete falsity. And we've been analyzing that a lot lately as we've been looking at these alternative narratives and how brainwashing could totally manipulate us out of a certain path and into a totally different state of mind, given only just 2 generations to work with. You can totally reshape a culture with just 2 generations. A son angry at his father can change the world for the worse or for the better. Anyway, guys, there are some absolutely bananas episodes coming up. I have stumbled upon something that I cannot wait to share with the rest of you guys. The Patreon followers are going to get it first, but you guys will get it as well. And it's just some of the craziest inner Earth stuff, Hollow Earth, other civilizations that were in America before Christopher Columbus, and maybe even Aztecs, and maybe even Egyptians. So, if you guys want more of that kind of stuff, then go ahead and hit the subscribe. Get your friends, get your family, get everybody to come over to the 21 CD podcast and see what's going on, because we need more friends. All of us are the ones that don't have any friends. You know, you're my friend and I'm your friend, and that's pretty much all we got. So let's make the family bigger. Love you guys. Don't drink the water. Question everything. Peace. So you've made it here. Believe it or not, most listeners never make it to the end of these videos. So I'm going to start doing a little thing. There's going to be secrets hidden all over my episodes. Secrets you're going to want to know. And this is the first one. British agents reported a 4th team working in a field of physics that seemed almost magical. A scientist at Farm Hall casually mentioned the production of artificial rubies. Newspaper excerpts reported Allied officers who, immediately after the war, spoke out to clarify that the war had been won, not as an inevitable victory over a collapsing empire, but just barely, and just in the nick of time, a perspective that quickly tends to be lost amid the triumphalism of the emerging Allied legend and the standard war stories. An extensive isotope enrichment program carried out by the SS cast a shadow on the ground, despite all the post-war Allied efforts to retouch the picture and render the object casting the shadow invisible, the ultimate cloaking technique. The question is why? Why would one conceal a successful German atomic bomb well into the late 20th and early 21st century, unless this program led to something else whose possession would grant the nation that continued its development extraordinary technological and military power? Why indeed, if this program does not lead to a completely different scientific paradigm developed in secret and apart from the mainstream science textbooks offered to the public for consumption? A large part of the answer to these questions lies in the hidden aspects of the ideology of the Third Reich and in the power and bureaucratic structures that were established to realize that ideology. Another significant part of the answer lies in the connection between Himmler's Special Commando and its parent organization, the SS itself. The very nature of that organization, at its core and at the very top of its power structure, was, in the truest sense of the word, occult. There are 2 facts that directly connect Himmler's Black Underground and highly secret weapons empire with this occult aspect of the Third Reich and its SS Black Order. These 2 connections in turn require a cursory examination of the occult teachings themselves and needed so that we may clearly discern the outlines of their influence on the sensational German weapons research of the war. In the context of Himmler's department and its continuation after the war, it is best understood that this science is an occult science. The occult science is to be understood as being contained in various artifacts, ancient mysteries, various esoteric and other occult traditions in themselves, and actual physical structures of other kinds of physical artifacts. However, this broad definition must probably be unpacked further in order that it be adequately understood in its full scope. Occult science. The science component of this term specifically focuses on 3 general areas: physics, chemistry, and biology. There is an occult physics that is, sometimes deliberately, hidden in various mythological and ancient texts, including the tests of the esoteric or occult traditions of both the East and the West. This belief was one of the cornerstones of the German secret weapons research, which also provided the fertile ground for their lesser-known, yet all the more astonishing achievements. This thesis was an essential component of the ideological belief structure of the upper echelons of the SS and its more important and secret departments, including the Ahnenerbe service. Everything indicates that it also served as an important paradigm for the upper ranks of Himmler's secret weapons think tank. The occult aspect of the term occult science thus acquires an expanded meaning that goes beyond what is normally associated with the term occult, hidden or dark, and thus hidden in the sense of being black and classified as secret projects. And 2, intentionally coded science, found in texts or artifacts which, as conscious products of such coding, are subject to the entire spectrum of the usual typological and analogous methods of interpretation typically employed to understand such texts. In this case, however, they are not understood on a metaphysical basis, but rather in a proto-scientific or proto-physical sense. Unintentional corrupt transmission of this science and its textual and or physical artifacts by groups or communities that are not fully aware of the extent of the science actually encoded in them. Esoteric or occult traditions and secret societies in the conventional sense. This includes not only the usual occult texts and traditions and the various secret societies associated with them, but also traditions or legends that are generally not regarded as esoteric or occult in the conventional sense. They remain esoteric or occult only because they are not known to the general public. Artifacts that are buried or partially buried in the mists of prehistory, as well as the mythologies, legends, talismans, and the physical monuments typically associated with them. By old mythologies or legends is meant the legends, texts, and writings, regardless of whether they are regarded by a particular community as canonical or apocryphal of various cultures. And these cultures, primarily in question here, are of course the classical Sumerian, Egyptian, Hindu, Maya, Olmec, Scandinavian, Teutonic, Chinese, and also the later Greco-Roman European Standard culture. Upon careful consideration of these outlines, it becomes evident that the peculiar mixture of logic, reason, and science with the metaphysical and speculative component is a paradigm that easily adapts to the specifically German mindset as it developed from the beginning of the 19th century until the fall of the last bomb before capitulation in 1945. It is this kind of thinking that is the true target of the Allied legend to conceal. For more than anything else, Himmler's Black SS Special Commando for a secret weapons and think tank empire was the first deliberately and consciously organized and orchestrated attempt by a modern nation state to deploy massive financial, labor, technological, and above all, intellectual capital for an unofficial black project aimed at the restoration and development of lost and exotic technology through the application of the most avant-garde concepts of contemporary science of the time. Against the backdrop of this broad conceptual framework, we can now consider two significant facts that clearly place this think tank into the orbit of occult science in many of the above-mentioned senses. Ample evidence has already been presented of a possible German atomic bomb test on the island of Rügen in the Baltic Sea. This evidence came primarily from the released affidavit of Hans Zinser, who witnessed and described the explosion and the resulting mushroom cloud, as well as from the statement of the Italian officer Luigi Romersa, who was apparently there as an observer for Mussolini's Italian fascist government. Confirming evidence was presented of secret British atomic bomb warnings from the wartime and German telephone outages in Berlin, events that coincided in time with the test. But what about Rügen itself? Why would such a powerful weapon be tested on a sparsely populated island that lies so close to the population center of Kiel and its heavily trafficked sea routes and canals? What is so significant about Rügen that the SS would test an atomic bomb there? The answer could lie in a possible connection to the SS Special Department for Occult Research, the Ahnenerbe Service, a department personally founded by Heinrich Himmler that was charged with examining all available occult and esoteric teachings for their potential scientific value and armament. Among the teachings, espoused by Himmler and others at the top of the SS, was a peculiar variant of the Hollow Earth theory. In the Himmler variant, this theory stated that the known surface of the Earth was, in truth, the interior of this hollow sphere. And, so it reads in the article in Popular Astronomy from June 1946 titled German Astronomy During the War, they found it helpful to relocate the British fleet because the curvature of the Earth did not hinder observation. Visual rays were unsuitable due to refraction, but infrared rays experienced less refraction. Accordingly, a group of about 10 men under the scientific direction of Dr. Heinz Fischer, an infrared expert, was dispatched from Berlin to the island of Rügen to photograph the British fleet with an infrared device at an upward angle of about 45 degrees. Notably, this rather avant-garde experiment, no matter how irrational it may seem in hindsight, took place on Rügen. Apparently, there were a number of advanced projects on the island. One should also consider the hidden technological implications of the experiment. The Germans had the capability to detect infrared reflections from great distances through atmospheric refraction, the same technology that was developed for use in heat-seeking anti-aircraft missiles and later employed with dramatically destructive effect in the American plutonium bomb. And this provides a clue to the true nature of Himmler's think tank. It appears that a technology was developed which could be adapted for a variety of applications in various highly classified weapons developments and black projects, and was also used for experiments and tests of the aspects of National Socialist and occult beliefs. But again, why Rügen? The answer may lie in the island's esoteric history before the war, even before the First World War. After the end of the Second World War, Hitler's private library was discovered in a mine near his idyllic mountain cabin in Berchtesgaden. It contains several tomes and volumes of occult literature, including a collection of Lanz von Liebenfeld's magazine Ostara, which had been published in Vienna before the First World War. Although Hitler's own membership in an occult lodge is not conclusively proven, it is very likely that the young dictator actually visited von Liebenfels when both were in Vienna before the First World War. It is von Liebenfels and his order of the New Templars that established the connection between the SS, the experiments with the Hollow Earth, and the atomic bomb test on the Rügen. With the help of all these wealthy patrons who soon flocked to his secret society. Thus, von Liebenfels was able to purchase and renovate several old castles throughout Austria and Germany and convert them into centers for his order. In addition to his ideology, and the order also engaged in astrology, Kabbalah, phrenology, homeopathy, and nutrition. In any case, in the best traditions and tactics of classical Christian gnosis, and with the help of his monastic training as a Cistercian monk, von Liebenfels composed his own extensive variations of liturgical texts. A 2-volume breviary of the New Templars, the Psalms in German, and a secret Bible for the initiates, which comprised 10 volumes as well as prayer books and the like. Since his order received ample funds from the wealthy initiates, he purchased one of the castles on the island of Rügen, which he restored as a center for esoteric research and New Templar activities. Hitler was, according to von Liebenfels, in a letter to one of his New Templars, one of our disciples. You will yet experience that he, and through him we, will one day be victorious and develop a movement that will make the world tremble. When Hitler annexed Austria to the German Reich, von Liebenfels was imposed with a publication ban. In fact, the National Socialists strictly regulated any public display of occultism or secret society activities, almost to the point of complete non-existence. This makes Himmler's motives for establishing the SS Ahnenerbe service within the SS bureaucracy clearer, as the regime was likely partly afraid of its own connection to such societies and activities at the highest level. What was the Ahnenerbe? In many respects, it was the most secret of the countless secret departments of the SS. Some may have an idea of what the Ahnenerbe was and what kind of people it initially attracted. It was a course of study in the humanities. With firearms. It was based on esoteric research projects that gave the impression that Himmler hoped to turn the tide in favor of Germany by delving into the secrets of Rosicrucianism and Freemasonry. The occult significance of the Agothic spheres, and also the cylinders of the young At-Eton, and the symbolism associated with the suppression of the Ulster harp. Enormous sums were spent on its most ambitious projects. For example, on a flight to Tibet to search for the origin of the Indo-Germanic race that might have been capable of preserving the ancient Nordic mysteries. The Ahnenerbe also had archaeologists throughout Europe excavate remnants of Germanic culture. More than 50 departments of this branch spent over 1 million Reichsmarks on matters considered vital. But the most incredible research was carried out in Berlin in 1939. The astrologer Wilhelm Wolff described the Scientific Research Center of the Berlin Institute as follows. It was aimed at harnessing not only natural, but also supernatural forces. All sources of intellectual, natural, and supernatural power, from modern technology to medieval black magic, from the teaching of Pythagoras to Faustian pentagram invocations, were to be harnessed for the final victory. One of these experiments resembles nothing else as much as an early remote viewing experiment, in which a man, an alleged adept, held pendulums over images of submarines and then over maps of the ocean to locate them. For anyone who finds all of this to be nonsensical and fruitless play, it should be noted that the modern phenomenon of remote viewing is a highly advanced enterprise that was initially conducted in secret by the CIA, and for the testing of which none other than the renowned theoretical physicist Dr. Puthoff once worked on the development of strictly controlled scientific protocols. A fact that should give one pause, especially when one considers that many Germanic esotericists were later imported into the USA as part of Operation Paperclip. The Ahnenerbe's assignment was essentially to examine every potential energy source for armament. In doing so, all normal constraints or orthodox conceptual or moral paradigms were disregarded. In this context, there were inevitably more failures than successes. Yet even in this environment, in this bureaucratic culture, brainstorming and the development and pursuit of unorthodox new ideas were given more or less free rein. It was even expected. Consequently, the failures of the Ahnenerbe are often cited as evidence of a profound collapse not only of traditional morality, but also of the scientific establishment and the scientific method in Germany. However, what is deliberately overlooked are the hints at the possible and groundbreaking successes, because in the milieu of free experimentation without moral or other constraints, dramatic failure was indeed to be expected. But the potential for dramatic successes was just as great. Through the Himmler trail, evidence accumulated that the Germans, in their endeavor to win the war, had experimented with a form of science that the rest of the world had never even remotely considered, and that somewhere in this crucible of ideas, a new technology was born that was so far ahead of its time that it was suppressed for more than half a century. Facts and theories on the subject of the Ahnenerbe. Author unknown. What I just read for you was half of that document. And no, I'm not trying to cliffhang you. The rest of it is going to be on the Patreon, even on the free level. Again, this is not a money grab scheme. You can head on over to the Patreon and get the rest for free. And I really, really appreciate you listening to the end. I'm hoping that you find even more secrets as you continue to enjoy the 21 CD podcast.